Simutaya nthawi yanu kufunafuna maphunziro muzakhala wotumidwa moyo wanu wonse. Ngati simuphunzira anthu azingokutumani ajala kalime ajala kuchwe manyazi ajala katende yanti ndipo anthu ophunzira wandi wotumanso kwambiri. Ndiye ngati simuphunzira skulu akuyikirani apa mukhala otumidwa.
So now, let us come to the end of this or finalize this topic by looking at the general factors experienced by various missionaries. General problems experienced by various missionaries. So we are going to look at the problems basically to say what were the general problems as all the missionaries, what did they face in common. So this is another part that we're going to look or highlight some of the major challenges that were experienced by the missionaries. So let's be together, let's go through together and up to the end of this lesson. But they met some challenges. What were the challenges that they experienced during their mission? So the major challenges were the local customs or some of the extreme local customs. For example, the polygamy and the Nyau card. So as you can see, polygamy in Christianity is not allowed. Even in Catholic, it's not allowed. And again, Nyau card. The Nyau were taken as a religion itself. So that one, it was in constant conflict because they brought in a new religion which the people had to embrace, but it was in constant conflict. So the major problem again they experienced was the menace which led to the death of Koilad. The malaria was a big problem, which led to the death of Koilad and 20 other missionaries. So that was the major problem that they faced also. So from there now we have looked at the missionaries or the missionary factor in Malawi. But then we have to look at the problems. What were the problems that the missionaries encountered in Malawi? Here we are talking of the general problems, whether the Scottish, the Blantyre, the Dutch, the Catholics, and many others. What were the general problems that were experienced by the various missionaries? Number one is the African customary practices, the intolerable African customary practices, such as the Mwavi Ordeal, polygamy, the Nyau card, rainmaking. These ones, they were usually a stumbling block on the conversion of Africans. So there were other African practices that they were doing that they could not be tolerated in Christianity. So those things they limited the number of Africans to be converted into Christianity. And number two was the insecurity brought by the militaristic tribes, such as the Ngoni, who were raiding others, and the slave raiders or the slave traders, the slave trade activities. They posed a challenge to the missionary work. So some of the militaristic tribes, the Ngoni, as well as the slave raiders, those ones, they brought a challenge to the missionary work. Also the harsh tropical diseases such as malaria, they also brought some of the problems in the areas where they settled. So there are also other problems like black water, fever, smallpox, insects, flies, and these ones, they caused the premature death of many missionaries. So we talk of the UMCA, they died as early as possible. And many other missionaries, when they came, they were dying. You talk of Captain Edward Young, when they settled at Cape Macleay, he died earlier before even accomplishing many things. And wild beasts was also another problem due to the thick forest. So these ones, they also posed a very, very big problem. The wild beast. We talk of the period when there were no national parks. Lions, elephants, and all those wild beasts, they were just moving freely anywhere. So they were causing a lot of problems. And again, the harsh climate also caused a lot of problems, whereby the missionary work, it was difficult since they were used to temperate climate of Europe, which was very cool. So as such, they were confined into a few places. For example, we talk of the Livingstonian mission. They were just confined to Kondowe there. Most of the Europeans, they settled there at Kondowe. If they moved to other areas, they were facing that difficulty in that climate. And again, lack of civil authority. Civil authority was not there. It was a hindrance to missionary work, since the missionaries, they spent a lot of time on diplomatic missions and disciplining African societies. So when the Europeans came, or the missionaries came, there was nothing like a dominant body to look after the issues. As they were busy to spread the gospel, they were also busy to spread some of the disputes that were there, so that they pacified the area and made the work possible. So they took a lot of time to do that. And the missionaries, they lacked money, accommodation, and drugs. So this was because they originated from very far, that is in Europe, and making it difficult to be constantly supplied to them. So there was no drugs, and they were also used to certain foods were not there here. So they lacked a lot of things, money, to use money to buy things, and they were not able to access those things because they were very far, that is in Europe. Another problem was the poor communication network. So in unnavigable rivers, the thick forest or tropical forest, it hindered the movements and retarded the progress of the work. So the movements, it was hindered because most of the streams, they were unnavigable. The rivers were unnavigable, and there was thick forest. There was no road by then. It means when they were moving to the villages, they had to pass through the bush. So it was difficult. And language problem, as there were many languages. So in Malawi, as you know, there were so many tribes. As such, it was difficult for them to concentrate on learning one language because there were so many languages, and it became a barrier. And also opposition from the traditional religions and the African cultures. So Africans, they had already developed their concept of God, whom they worshipped through their ancestral spirits. So it was difficult for the missionaries to convert these Africans who had already that concept of God in their minds. And also the missionary discrimination of Africans, which led to the formation of independent churches, like the PIM by John Chiremwe. So most of the missionaries, especially the Protestant, they were so discriminatory in their behavior. Unlike the Catholics, when they came, they were easily mixing with the Africans. That's why they were entrusting the group as, that is, the catechist. They were teaching them and sending them into the villages to teach. But the Protestant, they were so discriminative in their work, and that one, it led to the formation of independent churches. And also limited missionary manpower, since the missionary groups were too few to be effective. So the missionaries who were coming, they were few, and for them to be effective, they needed to be many, but they were few. And pre-existence of Islam, it also hampered the efforts. So we said Islam was the first foreign religion to be introduced in Malawi. So later on, when Christianity was coming, they already found Islam has dominated in some of the areas, especially intellectual areas of the lakeshore areas. We talk of Nkota, Mangochi, Salima, and the like. So also the quarrels and misunderstandings among the whites themselves. So this one, it limited the progress of their work. For example, the Catholics and the Protestants. Just as we have mentioned, we said when the Catholics were coming, they were coming with the objective to say we are going to counter the work of the Protestants, but they were bringing Christianity as well. So that conflict again, it resulted into limiting the progress of the work. But what was the impact now? What was the impact of the early missionary work in Malawi? Number one, evangelization. So many Africans were converted to Christianity. Number two, we talk of education. So many or Christian missionaries, they were the first to open schools and Africans got education. And also pacification. Pacification, that is, they pacified, they brought some peace to some of the warrior tribes like the Ngoni. And also they contributed to the rise of nationalism through their education, because Africans, some of the educated Africans, they started to question some of the works of the colonial government. As such, they were able to demand independence because they were educated. And again, missionaries assisted in the eradication of slave trade and tribal wars. So they brought to an end tribal wars and slave trade. And also, they sometimes built good roads, and they also brought boats which improved the communication. So the roads, most of the roads that we see today, they were first used by the missionaries, and later on the colonial government started to improve them. Then later on, they are as they are now. Another impact was the modern medical services were introduced and promoted. We talk of health services. When we talked of the Livingstonia, we said they introduced the Gordon Memorial Hospital in at Livingstonia. So in many places, the missionaries, they were providing the health services. They also taught Africans improved methods of farming, and they also introduced the new crops. Also, the missionaries, they acted as the checks and balances against the conduct of the colonial government. Where the colonial government was not doing well, they were able to put a check there to say, no, don't abuse the people. And also, they presented the interest of Africans in the legislative council. So the missionaries, their views were presented in the colonial government parliament there. So the African views were held by the government. And also Africans received industrial training in various manufacturing arts. So we talk of carpentry, bricklaying, plumbing, shoe, soap, and oil making. They were making a lot of things during that time, and Africans learned a lot of that. And also the missionaries, they introduced legitimate trade. Legitimate trade was introduced to replace that slave trade. So they initiated the coming of the African Lakes Company, which improved the provided a market for African commodities. That is the African Lakes Company. It was brought by the missionaries, recommended by the missionaries to come and replace the slave trade. However, this missionary work, it also had some negative impact. So let's look at the negative impact of the missionaries in Malawi. Number one, the spread of Christianity. It led to the erosion of some African customs. So the African customs as well as traditions, they came to an end, or they eroded. For example, polygamy, rainmaking, and even the weakening of African traditional religion. So their coming, it weakened the beliefs of the Africans in their religion. And also they facilitated and were the harbingers of colonization, which destroyed the social political structure of the indigenous African societies. So we see to it that their coming, it was one step of colonization. because the British colonialism just followed their steps. Because when they were colonizing or choosing the land to declare as a protectorate, they were following to say, we are declaring this area as our protectorate because they are our people, they are the missionaries, like that. So for example, Dr. Laws is on record to have written his home government to colonize Nyasaland so as to bring order and to have their interest safeguarded. So that is a clear evidence that the missionaries, they were the ones who brought in colonization, who recommended colonization by the British. Also, the missionaries, they brought disunity among the Africans. This was due to doctrinal differences and favoritism of certain groups of people over others. So they brought disunity among the Africans because they differed in the doctrines. So, for example, we talk of maybe if this church or this the Livingstonia comes and settled maybe in Livingstonia, they were teaching some of the doctrines that were different from other missionaries. As such, those people who accepted their doctrines, they were taken, or they take themselves to be more Christians than others. And the Christians, they kept, those Africans who accepted, they kept on maybe scorning others to say, no, you do these things, they are bad. You do these things, they are bad. We do these things, they are good, as such. As a result, it was a disunity among the Africans. Also, destruction of African traditional religion. So missionaries, they condemned the aspects of the ATR, such as rainmaking, veneration of ancestral spirits. So they they destroyed the ATR, that is African traditional religion. And also Europeans, they brought down local industries such as the craft industries. For instance, pottery and blacksmith, they were all replaced by European manufactured goods such as the utensils. So pottery, it was brought to an end. So they brought down the efficiency or the effectiveness of that industrial or African industry. And also European or the missionaries, they promoted individualism, replacing the communal life. So Malawians or Africans, they were used to communal life. But when the missionaries came, they were promoting individualism, that is to say, one man for himself or herself. So that was another thing that was not okay. Now, however, this missionary work expanded in Africa. So what were the factors that led to the expansion of this missionary work in Central Africa? Number one was the aid from the overseas sister missions for the missionary activity. So they were able to expand well because of the aid that was coming from the Britain or the overseas or Europe, and they were supported from Europe, hence they were expanding. And also their dedication despite the problems they encountered. We have mentioned here that a lot of missionaries died. Livingstone died here, and a lot of people, Captain Edward Young, had it been there were others, they could say, no, we have problems of malaria, we are going to perish here, let us go back. But they had that spirit of dedication to say, all right, our friends have died, so let us just find ways and means to be here and carry on with the work. And they opened up new mission stations besides their headquarters. So they were not just stick to one area, they were opening up new mission stations. So in that way, they were able to expand. And also the support from some African communities to open up mission stations in their areas. For example, the Tonga and the like. And again, the exemplary life or the good morals attracted the local people to follow Christianity. So the missionaries, they were successful because they were mostly focused in their work. So they were living an exemplary life. If they talk of Christianity, they were living that Christian life. As a result, they attracted many people. So up to this far, we have come to the end of this topic. I know this topic has been quite hectic, quite long. I know you have taken so many sessions to come to this end. So it has been really a wonderful topic where we have explored a lot of things. So this is the longest topic in the book 3 or in form 3 work. So the rest that is remaining is chunked, like the next topic that we are going to look at is very brief and short, and all the others, they are short, but this one, it has been very, very long. So we have looked at the aspect of Islam and the aspect of Christianity as the missionary factor in Malawi. So I leave you with these questions now, number 1 up to 13 on this part, but they are many. They continue up to question number 21, something like that. So there are many questions because the topic is long. So being a long topic, you have also to tackle in different areas. There can be a lot of questions here, and I'll be producing a lot of them to you if you go through this this work as well. So in this topic, as we have come to an end, you have also to do it as usual. Remember to go through these questions as they are, and when you go through them, understand the question. Understanding the questions is the major thing that you can do. So what you can do at this point, you can pause and copy the questions somewhere, then later on start answering those questions. So as I've already indicated, the questions are many. They go up to question number 21, that is the structured, but I have also an essay here. The essay says, discuss the impact of missionary work in Malawi. So it's an essay. I hope you are going to write a very good essay looking at the long topic, a lot of facts that we have covered. So there, go through each and every question there, copy it somewhere, and after copying, then what you do is you start answering. So as usual, as I always say, you take pen, paper, usually the black pen, start writing these questions. You write these questions without maybe going back to refer to say, what did I learn from there? No, after learning, that's when you do that one, or you can study first, then you handle the questions. Don't do the copy and paste. That is you copying the answers from there so that you should total them all. Test your brain, the capacity, how you can contain this thing, for how long can you remember this thing. So immediately after you have learned, that's when is the good time to answer the questions. So you take pen and paper and you write. After you write, you scan them, or you take a clear photo and send via the WhatsApp number that is already provided there on here. So you send it here. If you have a privilege of an email address, you can send yours again via the email address that is also provided there. So that's what you can do on this one. Now the next topic that we are going to look at, it is very brief topic that takes only one session, then you are done with it. So the topic that we are going to look at is the development of ivory and slave trade in East and Central Africa. Remember, we looked at the gold trade by the Portuguese. That was the Portuguese factor. But this one, we're going to look at ivory and slave trade. Although there we mentioned the same people like the Arabs that are also going to be mentioned here, but here we are going to center on ivory and slave trade. So this one, it is brief, but it is very, very interesting topic. It is very interesting topic. So you should not take much time to order your DVD on the same. So I'm just at the other side of your phone call. Just get that call and I'm ready to dispatch this DVD to you anytime you make that call. So until next time, thank you so much.